Hey y'all, Lily here. Today I am wrapping up the Yellow Man of Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. He is a spirit said to be in his 40s and dressed all in yellow to haunt the area, and we are going to discuss the lore and the facts and what all I think. I do apologize for my last research video. The audio on it was absolute terrible. It was very quiet, even for normal, so I really apologize for that, and I am very much trying to have a setup now that is a bit more consistent with better audio. But that aside, let's talk about the Yellow Man. Like I said, he is a figure that is seen dressed all in yellow suit, yellow hat. He is sometimes referred to as the Yellow Suit Man, and he was first reported seen in the summer of 1984, so almost 40 years ago. Norman, I believe his last name is pronounced Basil. I'm just going to call him Norman from here on out. Norman was at Bachelor's Grove Cemetery with an associate of his in hopes to actually capture something paranormal. Several hours into their waiting, his associate saw what appeared to be a man in his 40s wearing a yellow suit and hat. Moments later, as they were discussing what it could have possibly been, both men saw red light streaking by and a nearby tree begin to shake on its own. The men then left the area, and supposedly during this time, his associate captured a photograph, but I couldn't locate a copy of it online. I'm not even entirely sure the photograph exists, but it could be out there somewhere. I do want to note on this one, when it was originally reported, it was reported that Norman himself saw the Yellow Man, and then later on it was corrected that it was his associate, and his associate was a skeptic, and just prior to seeing the Yellow Man said that he was beginning to feel sorry that they hadn't captured anything up until this point in time. So there's just that thought process, or not really process, but thought. The second sighting, or second reported sighting, was published in 1996. It doesn't actually have a date attached to when it was when it took place, or an exact location within the cemetery itself. But a woman by the name of Heather was with her father and a friend, and she saw a man dressed all in yellow. Her father and friend did not see this. She kind of felt like there was a presence that blew by her. She didn't see any lights, but she felt a presence, and she, at that point in time, got out of the cemetery rather quickly. I just noticed that my poor camera is shaking. I am so sorry. I will figure out something that's nice and not so shaky cam. But the interesting thing with Heather's story is that she states she was bored prior to having this experience. And I'm not saying that that necessarily lends itself to having an experience, but I do find it interesting that in the first two reported sightings, you have a gentleman who stated that he felt sorry for somebody for not having an experience before having one himself. And in this case, you have someone who was bored before having an experience. And minds can play tricks when, you're feeling bored or sorry for someone, but also, too, you could just think up something. So the next reported sighting takes place in 1998, and this one to me is most interesting because the person who tells it is actually the gentleman who is responsible for the almost all of the information that is out there on Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. He curates the Bachelor's Grove Cemetery and Settlement Research Center website. He is the one who has compiled all the information for the Paranormal Research Guide. Anything having to do with Bachelor's Grove Cemetery, Pete's name is attached to. And so this one is interesting to me because he actually did not want this story told. And he, didn't really want to release his photograph. And the reason why is because this is a photograph that could be very easily dismissed as nothing because the way it was captured. He was testing out a new digital camera, and back in 1998, they weren't exactly the best. So when he snapped a photograph of what he saw when he saw a figure in yellow, it did capture what he saw, but it's so grainy and pixelated. I have cats fighting. It's so grainy and pixelated that he knew it could very easily be dismissed by skeptics. So he didn't want to have it put out. He did tell somebody about this story and experience, asked them not to release it, and then later on they printed it in a book. So he kind of came forth with why, like what was incorrect, and why he wanted to clarify and everything. If you watch my day one research, when I'm going over the photograph, I actually make a comment about how I could pick out several different faces and stuff, that if you asked me where's the ghost in this photo, that's what I would go with, not the little bit of yellow that's off to the side. So I see why he did not want this released, but for me, it kind of makes me hold his story in a little bit higher regards because of, one, who he is, and just the fact that he didn't want it out there, but also he didn't even know of the Yellow Man for a year or so after he saw this. So just one of those things. I do really suggest reading his story in the guide because it's directly from him, which to me makes it the most compelling. Our next sighting took place in April of 2009, and Nina's got a last name I cannot pronounce. I think it's Nina Jankowski. She was part of the Chicago Ghost Hunters group, and she began to feel dizzy and saw a shadow person run past her. She took a picture using her digital camera, but later noted that the settings were not as she had previously set them. And this one, it's got just enough information for me to be genuinely curious, but I was not able to locate the original article to get more information. And this has been posted on the Examiner's website, and it's not part of their archive anymore. So I just unfortunately only had about a paragraph of information on it. So I have a lot of questions. We know what kind of camera did she use, the settings, could they, with some cameras they have like a little settings wheel, could have easily been knocked or even adjusted without somebody seeing, or were they settings that you had to go into a menu screen to set up? They said that this took place over by the Fulton Monument, which is around the Fulton Monument is where Pete saw and captured his photograph of the Yellow Man. But this one, it's why I wish I could read the original article. It stated that she was in lot 17 near the grave of Charles B. Shields, but the photograph is supposedly taken by Fulton Monument in lot 15, and so you have lot 16 that sits between them, and you can kind of see a corner of a stone in the photograph. It does kind of look like Fulton Monument, but it could also just be another one. So was the camera zoomed in a lot, or was she actually over by Fulton, or was she over by Shields? I'm curious. There's a little bit here that it's just, it leaves more questions. So, and I want to know, were they over, if they were at the Fulton Monument, were they over there because of Pete's story, or were they examining and looking everywhere? So yeah, I just wish there was a little bit more information on that. And also to the photograph itself. Again, I have said it's, I feel like 1,000 times with this location. You can do a lot with your camera and the settings and getting what looks like streaks of light, but it's just really manipulation. So I'm not going to say it. I'm going to say it. You can fake it. You can fake it. It's so easy to fake. Come on. So I have a hard time with this story. But also too, and don't laugh, but because she was with a ghost hunting group, I am, oh gosh, I am always the skeptic when it's anybody, well, it's not me, getting things, and just everybody wants, like their 15 minutes of fame, and if you can capture something good ghost-wise and you're part of a paranormal group, that's amazing, but it just, I don't trust paranormal groups, and I say this as someone who talks to somebody, or I talk to several people who are part of paranormal groups all the time. I actually have a few that I bounce ideas off of, and they're probably going to hate me for this, but it's so hard to believe captures by certain groups, which I'll even say more on there. There's a video for YouTube. It's really a radio clip. It's about 7 minutes long, but 4 minutes into it's when they talk about the Yellow Man, and one of the people talks about how he took a group of people out to the cemetery, and one of them was a medium, and she felt something. Well, I have a hard time saying that mediums are real. I have a hard time saying that things that are captured by ghost hunting teams are real. It's just, there's so many snake oil salesmen that it makes it hard to believe when there's not. But since my little bit of rambling there, let's get back to the rest of the sightings. Alright, another personal experience that I did find was actually from the person who saw the disappearing house that I mentioned in that video and written. I can't talk. I got on my little roll and now I've lost track of my own words. But Arvo was the person who saw the disappearing house. And on a different night, he claims to have seen multiple entities and lights, figures, all kinds of things, while sitting in a dugout grave. And he was by himself. This was on an almost full moon night on June 13th, 2003, which was a Friday the 13th with, again, almost a completely full moon. I think based off of what I looked up, it was like 99% illuminated. But Arvo settled in around 11 p.m. and around 2 a.m. he started to see different ghosts. And what he saw in regards to the Yellow Man was not so much a man in a suit, but a glowing yellow figure that would walk for a little bit, explode into a bunch of little orbs, reform, walk a little bit more, explode, reform, just kind of continuously. All the things that he saw, he sketched out, and then they all stopped around sunrise, and when they stopped, he waited a little bit and then left. With this one, I felt a really big connection with his story and the disappearing house. Like, it had a gut feeling that it felt more at the very least realistic, if not real. With this one, I don't quite get that same feeling. And it's not to say that he didn't see something, it's just more of, you know, he was alone in a cemetery for 3 hours at this point in time, sitting in a grave, no less, before he saw something. He could have had a very lucid dream. His eyes could have been playing tricks on him. It could have been any number of things. I mean, I'm not saying he was drinking or anything, but that's always a possibility. You never know. So again, I don't want to say it's fake, but this very much could have just been a extremely lucid dream. So, there weren't really any facts as to who the Yellow Man might be. Nobody seems to really question it. With it being supposedly that he's seen around Fulton Monument, he could be somebody who is buried there, but based off of the cemetery records that I found online, there wasn't anybody who was in their 40s that is dead and buried right around there. There are a few people who are buried that they don't have, you know, their lifespan listed. So it's possible he is one of them. I guess it's also possible in the realm of ghosts that it could be somebody who died in their 60s or 80s and just came back in their 40s. Whatever. We're talking ghosts here, or whether or not they're real, so we can take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. And I just do want to comment one more time. I have said this repeatedly, both in my videos, the written for the Disappearing House, even in other posts, about the role fog and mist and creeks, ponds, swamps, they all can play with seeing lights and light orbs, even capturing things on photos, also too with bugs. I mean, there's just any number of things that can create an orb, and that includes, even if I am taking a photograph of something and I see what looks to be an orb, I'm going to discredit it very quickly, because I just know it could be 1,001 natural things that have absolutely no spooky cause, and I just move about my day on it. I don't know exactly what it would take me photographing to say, again, myself, because that's what I'm going to believe, to say that it is something, but orbs, when it comes to my spooky evidence, I need more than an orb and a streak of light. So, that being said, do I think the Yellow Man is real or not? Honestly, kind of like with the Disappearing House, there isn't enough there. Maybe as I go on a little bit more, and I may even come back after I leave here. Sorry, I just knocked the camera and everything. But when I leave here, I may come back after a while and do some of the other stories. I do want to do the Madonna ghost and the Hook stories, since he's, you know, Hookman is one of my favorite urban legends. So I want to see that. But it seems a lot of what is captured at Bachelor's Grove is orb-based, so I don't imagine I will come back and do anything on that. You guys don't really want to read something where you just know right off the bat. To me, it's just all natural, so. Anyways. Like I said, I am going to do the Madonna ghost and the Hook probably as one post, so I'm going to get started on that research next week. I am still continuing the research on the Fort Fisher Ghost Project. if you want to sign up for more information on that, because it will not be on YouTube or on the blog site. I do have a link below in the description for you to sign up. I'm starting to ramble, so I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up my wrap up. And like I said, I'll be back soon with more research on Bachelor's Grove Cemetery. So y'all have a good one.